Every time I play that video, guys, it just absolutely blows me away. Absolutely love it here. Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome back to Talking Devils podcast, your number one independent Manchester United podcast. As always, every Friday at 7 p.m., I am joined by Mr. Phil Marsh and Lee Lawrence, former Manchester United players. We are in a winter break, which is a shame because Man United are just back on form, but we are still here to talk all things Manchester United. We're still going to talk about the West Ham game last week. We're going to break down, obviously, our January transfer window in terms of, no wins yet, but outs. And what we're going to talk about is just a perspective running now that we do have for the rest of the season going forward. But first of all, Phil, haven't talked to you since last week. We've obviously seen us get a great win against West Ham at all. And that, Phil, how's it going? How's the form?
Yeah, all good. Thanks, mate. Nothing really different than most.
Did I cut out there, guys?
A little bit.
Yeah, only a little bit. You're all right though. Yeah, I'm good. Just obviously normal week in work for me and a lot of training. Started back into the gym and stuff, so enjoying that. But yeah, everything else is fine and good to see United get a win last week.
I think Keane's gone there. Phil, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I think he must have paid his bill again, like you the other week.
I might as well play host then. So, did you play at the weekend, Phil? Did you?
I'm back, guys. I'm back.
I was just being the host till you come back, Keane.
Grand, work away. Ask the question there.
Go on, mate. Carry on.
No, I'm just saying, I'm all good, thanks, mate. Just you can crack on. I was just saying everything's fine. Normal week for me in work, and obviously good to see United get a win last week.
Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. And apologies for the viewers, guys. I just had a massive technical fart there. I don't know what happened with my screen, but the lads were flashing. My whole screens were going bananas there. But other than that, guys, I'm absolutely fantastic. Happy Friday, everyone. But Lee, yourself, how's the form? How are you feeling this week?
Same old, mate. All good, thank you. Bit of a dud week because obviously we've got the winter break, and there's not much going on football-wise. But like I say, come off the back of two decent performances, or two wins. Look like we're getting, somewhere where we're climbing up the ladder and in the table, and look like the form's coming back a little. So hopefully it's just a bit of a stepping stone for things to continue. Keane's gone again.
Shocking. Not going to plan, is it, this week?
Not going to plan. Keane, come on, Keane.
Me and you'll have to do our own podcast, Lee.
Good evening, Victoria's Secrets, mate. I hope you're well. I've seen your little comment coming in there.
Yeah, evening, anyone who's watching. Just waiting for Keane to sort his internet out.
So, guys, while he's not there, if there's any comments you want to chuck our way so we can answer them, so we can do a bit of a makeshift thing while he gets back in, feel free.
Yeah, we'll do a quick 5-minute question and answer if anyone's in there.
He's coming back in there. He's coming back.
Back here, guys. I don't know what happened there again. Crashed. I don't know. Usually the excuse that Phil always says Lee he didn't pay the internet bill. Looks like it's the other way around. Looks like that's after hitting me this week. But guys, thanks very much everyone for tuning in. Victoria's Secret also in the comments here. It says evening all. Hope all is well and in good form. Thanks very much. Hope all is well there. Dave is also in the comments there as well. It says evening gents. And also Victoria's Secret says Keane is speechless. Well, I'm usually a man of a lot of words, but for that little 5-minute stretch there, it looks like I was a man of very few words because the screen was freezing. But we are here today to talk all things United. We are here to talk all things West Ham. And we're going to talk about the transfer window. We're going to talk about multiple things on the podcast. But I suppose first thing we're going to talk about, and I will come to Victoria's Secret's question in regards to the top four when we get to the transfer stuff. But first thing we'll talk about, guys, just the West Ham game last weekend. Brilliant 1-0 win for Manchester United. First clean sheet we've kept in a long time, at home especially. So that was a massive bonus, other than the 3 points as well. But Phil, I'll just come to you first. In terms of the overall game performance, for many people, people are saying that this is the first game under Ralph Rangnick that we've had a full control over 90 minutes. And we pretty much restricted West Ham to next to nothing. For you, what do you think of the overall performance and just, I suppose, the relief that Manchester United finally kept a clean sheet?
Yeah, I agree with that. I do think it was probably the best performance since Ralphs came in over a full 90 minutes. Because I think we've seen spells, like as we touched on last week, in terms of Aston Villa for 45 minutes, Brentford for 45 minutes. But I think last week against West Ham, it was a more complete performance over the full 90 minutes. As you just said then, I think we limited West Ham to, very few like real good opportunities, which is a good, obviously, because they've got a lot of talented players. And it was a potential banana skin. Obviously, they've been playing really well and can sort of, hurt teams from a lot of different sort of ways. And I thought we dealt with the majority of that really well. On the flip side, I thought, we created a lot of chances and, it could have, been one of them afternoons where we could have looked back and thought it was 2 points dropped. But luckily we got that goal in the, the dying minutes. And it was a great way to sort of, finish the game, because I think, it was more than warranted, the 3 points on reflection of the overall game. And obviously a good, goal for Marcus Rashford again, who's, been sort of low on confidence and maybe, nowhere near the levels that we know he can get to. So for him to score, obviously, get off the bench against Brentford and then, to score the winner against West Ham will do him the world of good moving forward. And hopefully he can kick on now and start producing some of the form that we know he can.
And Lee, just obviously on the back of what kind of Phil said there in terms of Marcus Rashford, obviously he is 2 from 2 now in the last 2 games, and he looks like there was someone who was getting his confidence back. You think that Fergie time winner for Marcus Rashford could maybe be that kind of, I suppose we've all kind of said in the last couple of weeks, that kind of, I suppose, a bit of rejuvenation, that kind of kick up the arse almost that he's going to do. He's going to keep pushing now. We're maybe going to start seeing now the best of Marcus, because he has had his struggles in the last recent months.
I certainly hope so, mate. Yeah, obviously as United fans, I know we've all got different opinions at the moment on Marcus, but I'd say we generically all really want him to come back on form and all get so he can get back to the player what we all know he can be. That's what we all want. We've talked about it in the last couple of podcasts about confidence, and it's a massive thing when you're a footballer. If you're playing with confidence, your game rises tenfold. With strikers, as again Phil will tell you, you get your goals that bring you confidence, especially at the Stretford end, the last kick of the game. You know what I mean? It was very nice, wasn't it, just to see a smile back on Marcus Rashford's face. You know what I mean? It's the last couple of times we've seen him when he's been on the pitch or whether he's been subbed and been in the stands. It's just had that blank expression on him where there's nothing there. It looked like not the same lad. It looked like his confidence was shot. So hopefully, like I say, this has given the boost he needs now, because we all know on his day what we've all seen it over the last few seasons, what he can do. Again, we mentioned it in the last podcast. He carried us for a few seasons up front as a very young lad. He was technically our best player, our best goal scorer in a time where if he wouldn't have had him.
We just lose Lee there.
There must be only me who pays the bills.
Yeah, it must be only you that pays the bills. We just lost Lee there. But just look, we carry on until Lee comes back there now. It looks like talk to the Devils tonight. We're just having all Wi-Fi issues now. Touch wood now. Phil doesn't have issues of his own. But touch on Marcus there, Phil. Obviously, coming from your point of view as a striker, obviously there's times where strikers don't always score goals. There's always times where there might be a barren run or there might be kind of a loss of confidence. And Marcus obviously is coming back from, I suppose, surgery. He's coming back from, a time in his career where he's been kind of, riddled with injuries, but also almost, apart from Bruno Fernandes, almost carrying Manchester United almost on his back in these last kind of 2 years, especially during Ollie's tenure. For you, are you kind of looking at this and saying he's only young, maybe that this kind of patch of form maybe was needed to help him redevelop his game, evaluate his game, and kind of have that experience of having that bad run and kind of, I suppose, not resting on your laurels?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, any striker, no matter who you are, you're always going to go through little runs where you don't score, or you'll have your purple patches when things are going in off your backside and all that kind of thing. And then on the flip side of it, you can go games where you're still playing well, but you just can't find the back of the net. I think that's just part and parcel of being a footballer, really. But yeah, I just think obviously Marcus, with a lot of the stuff that he's been doing outside of football, sometimes you can get a little bit sidetracked and lose focus of obviously what your main aims and goals are. And I think for him, in this last couple of months, I think most definitely you can see that, the levels and sort of the confidence and all that side of things have definitely affected him. But yeah, just obviously, the goal against Brentford to come on and make an impact in that game. As I say, in football, it only takes, one game, one goal sometimes to totally flip your form around. And for me, I'm hoping that, he can just take a lot from that and use obviously that as a catalyst now to sort of kick on and finish the season in style, because it was just good to see, because when I watch Marcus, sometimes I think he could, he could easily score 20, 25 goals a season, because he's got everything that you need as a striker. He can beat a man. He's got a great strike on him. He's skillful. He's fast. Just for me, sometimes doesn't get himself in the box and in them positions in the 6-yard box where you can sniff out a goal. Now, the goal he scored the other day, when you look at players like Van Nistelrooy and strikers who we've had in the past, they score 5-10 goals a season by being in them positions and just, it's a tap-in, but at the end of the day, it's a goal. A goal's a goal. It's the match winner. And if you've got that striker's instinct of being in the right place at the right time, which I don't think he's got, and not all strikers have that, so I'm not, saying he can learn that, but if he could maybe put himself in positions where he could maybe affect the play and get on the end of things a little bit more, then, that could maybe, get him an extra, at least probably 5 goals a season, which, turns you from a decent striker into a really good striker.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, look, one thing that Marcus sometimes leaves him down is his nowhere to be in his decision making. I think that's a massive criticism from many United fans in terms of, even when he was on form, like his decision making sometimes would really leave him down. And I think maybe that's maybe an element of the game that maybe Ralph Rangnick can maybe, help Marcus in terms of his decision making. And I suppose from a tactical standpoint, Ralph can definitely, help Marcus in that respect. Am I still there, Phil?
Yes, mate. Yeah, I can still hear you. Now he's gone. I think you're on mute, Lee. I can't really hear you, so.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you, mate. Yeah.
I thought I'll just connection's completely gone on it.
Saying there's only me who's paid the bill.
Since he's went off, I started tripping.
I'm back. It seems like, again, just as Dave said, it looks like we're all having Fred Wi-Fi tonight. Looks like we're all having Fred Wi-Fi issues installed by our Brazilian. Yeah, but look, Dave agrees in terms of Marcus's decision making. Dave says Rashford's decision making is still an issue in my opinion. Should not have been addressed by now, considering he's a first team player for 6 years. That is very true. I think, look, he's been under Jose Mourinho, he's been under Oli, now under Ralph Rangnick. I think maybe Jose's system probably didn't suit him. Well, it didn't suit most of our attacking players, to be fair. It really stagnated many of our attacking players, I suppose, those strengths. But yeah, I think maybe you make the argument, he's been in the team 6 years, that yes, maybe he should be better, but people tend to forget he's still 24, so he's definitely still has a bit of time to kind of, I suppose, get rid of them couple of bad habits out of his game. He's still at an age where he's coachable. It'd be different if he was, let's say, on the flip side, if he was the same age as Cristiano and he was 36 and he had his habits. You're not going to teach a 36-year-old to get out of them certain habits. Well, Marcus is 24, so I think maybe under the right coaching setup, maybe he can iron out some of them mistakes, but time will tell. But it's a very fair comment that Dave says in terms of the fact he's been a first team player six years. that that there is room for that. And obviously, Louis van Gaal as well. He was under him for a short space of time as well, who was a very good coach. One player I'd like to touch on, because obviously a lot of Man United fans have almost fallen in love with this man in these kind of last couple of weeks, is Anthony Elanga. Victoria's Secret here says, give Elanga huge confidence to see Ralph sticking with him in the team. Lee, obviously yourself coming from the academy. I'll pose this question to Phil. Phil, obviously yourself coming from the academy setup, and obviously you were a young forward in the Manchester United team in the 06-07 season when you got that chance in the League Cup that time, and Sir Alex really gave you the confidence to go and make that step up. How do you think young Anthony is feeling right now, considering Ralph Rangnick is giving him a chance, predominantly now in the league, and giving them chances every week to be that first team player, and he's paying ahead of a £73 million signing in Jadon Sancho, but also Anthony Martial, who I know he's just have to move on, we'll touch in a while, but Rashford, Greenwood, players like that. It seems like Elanga is one of Ralph's first names on the team sheet. As a young player, speaking from your experience, how do you think Anthony Elanga is feeling right now?
Oh, he'll feel on top of the world. When you're a young kid and you even train with the first team, it's such an amazing experience. And for him now to be given that opportunity and sort of the manager trust him, and obviously be picking him ahead of the likes of the players we've just touched on, he'll be feeling like $1 million. And I think rightly so. And when he has played, he's done everything that you'd want from a player. He's worked hard. He's affected the game, and that's all you can ask from any player. So for me, he's there on merit, really. He's not there because we've got other players out injured. He's there because at the moment he's playing the best, and he's the one who can, make something happen for us and sort of, be the person that we look to. Because no matter how young you are, if you're good enough, then you're old enough for me. And for me, I just think as though when I look at the team at the moment, when Rashford or maybe a Sancho or somebody else was playing in that position, I didn't really feel as though I could sort of see him creating many opportunities. I didn't really feel as though he was gonna get a goal or an assist. Whereas now with Elanga, you can see how confident he is. He's obviously got a goal against Brentford. He's working hard. Yeah, he's still raw. He's going to make mistakes, but I think his attitude and the way he sort of applies
his application is fantastic.
Is second to none. And for a young player to be showing some of the older lads and some of the more experienced lads, it doesn't really reflect well on them. But for me, I'm so glad that Ralph's sort of sticking with him and persisting with him and basically showing the other lads that it doesn't matter who you are, how much your price tag is, what your name is. If you're not doing the business and you're not doing the basics and you're not sort of putting a shift in, then we've got other young players who are just going to come in and take your place, and rightly so. I think he deserves a good run in the team now, and that'll do his confidence wonders, and he'll only get better. I think that's the main thing. We've only sort of the tip of the iceberg with him. I think obviously we know what he's capable of from seeing him in the reserves and stuff, and obviously he's played a couple of
national team as well. He's playing very well for their under-21 setup at the moment.
Yeah. So at the moment, we've not really seen the true full potential as well. So for me, give him a run of games, let him keep doing what he's doing, and obviously, there's hopefully a lot more to come from him. But yeah, great stuff for him, and he must be feeling fantastic, because when you're playing for Manchester United, there's no better feeling.
Yeah, 100%. And the chant that the fans have for him now, like rid of his dance, Anthony Elanga, like that's a banger. I'm going to the Southampton game. Obviously, we're meeting up in a couple of weeks. And for the first, you've obviously met each other playing with United, but I'm meeting all Lead for the first time in a couple of weeks' time. That's going to be fantastic. I'm going to the Southampton game the next day. I cannot wait to hear his song, Rhythm is a Dancer, Anthony Elanga. That is just going to be absolutely fantastic. But Lee, just touching on Elanga, obviously, Cristiano Ronaldo looks like he's taken Elanga under his wing, and it looks like some of the other younger players haven't really have kind of, I suppose, went to Ronaldo for advice and stuff like that. Doesn't look like they've kind of went under his wing, but looks like from all the things coming out of the club, and obviously we're seeing a lot of videos and pictures with regards to Joe Ronaldo seems to be giving Elanga a lot of advice. Do you think that that's crucial for Elanga coming through as a young player? Because Cristiano was that young player at United. He was 17, 18 when he broke into the first team. And considering one thing we've all discussed before is kind of the lack of leaders and the lack of, I suppose, people for the younger players to confide in at the football club. Do you think it's crucial that Ronaldo does pass down this knowledge to Anthony Elanga?
No, 100%, mate. I think we mentioned it when Ronaldo was first signed at the beginning of the season. When we said it, it's a great signing football wise, but it was also a great signing for the whole of Man United. Not just on the pitch, but also the development of the youth players. Again, I don't know how many times we can repeat ourselves with, if you cannot take advice of Ronaldo, who's been there and done everything in world football, who are you going to take advice of? Elanga obviously is young, is fresh, is trying to impress, and hopefully he gets every little bit of information he can out of Ronaldo to fulfill the potential he's showing at the moment on the pitch. Every young player at United at the moment should be taking advice off your Cavani's and your Ronaldos. They've been there, they've seen it all, they've done it all. It'd be criminal as a young player growing up at United not to take that advice. But yeah, Elanga at the moment, I only caught half of what Phil said. I've paid my Wi-Fi bill too today, Keane, to be honest with you.
We're both on the Fred network at the moment, it seems.
I think that's what it is, mate. I think that's what it is. But just what I thought I caught off Phil is, for what I've watched, we had a bit of a laugh and a joke when we was picking teams the other week, if you remember, when Phil put him in, he was going to play him as a starter. And me and you kind of said, nah, he's a little bit too young and they'll not do that. To be fair, Phil was right. He's put him in the last couple of games, and for me, he's been one of the best players on the pitch. He's showed heart, he's showed desire, and he's showed what we've been missing the majority of the season off, well-oiled seasoned professionals who haven't been showing it. So, fair play to the young lad for showing, the players in there what we've been missing, and long may it continue with him.
Yeah, 100%. And I think especially for me with Elanga, on the back end of last season when he did come in for the Leicester game, the Wolves game, he did show that he had a bit of talent, but I think maybe he looked, obviously physically he didn't look like maybe ready for the first team full time. But then you seen him in the summer. I remember looking at him in the summer, the physical upper body work that he done and his physique coming back from pre-season, was fantastic. You can see he put in the commitment to kind of make that jump. And Ralph Rangnick, Marcus talked about this on the podcast the other night when Marcus said Ralph Rangnick's kind of philosophy is kind of, if there's young players who are there and they're hungry to be in the team, he's going to pick them over some of the overpaid players who have reputations. I think that's evident in the first match day squad that Ralph Rangnick had. He picked Anthony Elanga in the first match day squad. He was really impressed with him in training. And got a game that day ahead of the likes of Lingard, Martials and stuff. There's no secret that Ralph Rangnick rates him. And to be fair, he hasn't put a foot wrong since he brought him into the team. And yes, there's times he's going to look a bit raw because, he's young. There's going to be elements of his game that are not going to be as polished as what maybe, some of the other forwards in their team. But the one thing we can't deny is his overall commitment, desire, his press and counter pressing. He's doing the principles of what Ralph Rangnick wants in a left-sided player, in a winger. So, for me, it's great to see him kind of play the way he's playing, but also showing commitment. Because one thing we all said a couple of weeks ago, we had a really long podcast and we were talking about what we're missing, and sometimes we are missing that spark. And looks like Anthony Elanga is kind of giving us that spark up front. You see, Ronaldo's pressing that bit more. I noticed in the West Ham game, Ronaldo was almost playing a different role. He was bringing players into play. He was making runs off the ball. He was playing a classic number 9. Now, usually Ronaldo's just a poacher, and he gets into them positions, he scores goals. That's what he is now at 36. One thing I noticed against West Ham, he was bringing players into play. You had Joe Elanga and Greenwood running off him, and there was movement up front. So I think obviously maybe this young player Elanga coming in, maybe that gives Cristiano the spark, and he sees that young player working hard. Like maybe sometimes that's what a team needs. It's just that little bit of injection and little kind of spark. And looks like Anthony Elanga has given us that. But yeah, look, for me,
just on that as well. I don't know. Am I right in saying that I seen something on Twitter? I think it was a couple of weeks ago, saying that Ralph basically has brought Elanga into the first team setup just because of the way he was in training. Now, for me, if that's true, that speaks volumes to me about obviously, the lad's work ethic, and obviously for me, you train how you play, and if you're working hard in training, then and you're catching people's eye in training, then you sort of warranting your starting place on the pitch. But not only that, if he's obviously showing the right commitment and attitude, and the work rate that you need in training, then surely that should be rubbing off on some of these other players who are on a lot more money than him, who have come in with a lot bigger reputations and thinking, hang on a minute, I'm not having this young kid who's coming in from the reserves taking my place. Well, he has done now, and they're going to need to show some grit and determination to get that place back off him. Yeah. And I don't know whether some of these players now, because they're on so much money, and they get into sort of a bit of a comfort zone, whether they've got that real desire and that fight to sort of get the place back. Because if they don't show that, then I'm sure Ralph will persist with Elanga for the rest of the season, and you won't see much of your Sancho's and obviously Marshall's gone to Sevilla now, but these are players who when a young player comes in, when I was at the club, the players, if a young player came in, they would be using that as fuel then to say, well, right, they get the opportunity, we're glad that they've got that opportunity, wish you all the best and stuff, but like, you're not taking my place. And that was the way it was, and you've got to be like that. You've got to be ruthless, because you've got to look after number one. So that, for me, is something that I look at now and think Elanga's came in and he's leapfrogged some players who's came in with massive reputations, and fair play to him. He's worked his socks off, and you can see that. So fair play to him, and obviously he's doing the business for us on the pitch. So yeah, just thought I'd throw that in, because I thought it was something that I thought would be good to point out, because at the end of the day, in training, Lee will tell you, if you're not showing up well in training, then the management won't pick you. No matter who you are, no matter how good you are, you've got to still put the work in, and you've still got to work as hard as you would in a game in training, because that's where inevitably all the sort of fundamentals start. So yeah, just thought I'd drop that one in.
100%. I was going to come to Lee with that as well, because obviously I think especially with the last man, just lost him again. But just to kind of counter that, Phil, like obviously with the last manager we had, there was a lot of players who weren't performing in games and they were still getting picked. So it's refreshing to see now with Ralph Rangnick that he's picking players who are performing in training, but also performing in games when they're not getting picked, because they're, I suppose, they're tried and tested. That some of these players, like Elanga is the biggest example. Diogo Dalot is another. Like in terms of players who were performing in training, performing in games, and they're getting rewarded with starts. And the proof is in the pudding now that the form is slowly but surely starting to pick up, and Ralph is starting to implement his philosophy at the football club. Lee, I was going to come to you with Victorious and Secret's comments here. It says, nice to see that reputations and the cost of a player don't matter to Ralph. If a player is good enough and consistent, he should be starting in regards to price or reputation or age. Like,
is Keane gone again there, Phil?
Go on, Lee, crack on with that question, mate, because Keane's gone now.
Keane's gone again, yeah. To be honest, Phil, I was going to jump in anyway, but Keane muted me mic anyway before. Kind of picking up on that point, really, about the reputation and that. What I was going to say was, ability is a massive thing in a footballer, which you'll know yourself. You have to have ability to be at Man United. But I think there's different components to be a Man United player, and one of them, is effort and work ethic and desire. I was actually going to say it's refreshing to see that Ralph is actually not just picking players on merit or the name. Sorry, it's picking them on merit. He's not just picking them on, who they are or what price tag they've come with. He doesn't mind dropping a Sancho who's come for 80 million and putting a young kid in there who, not many of us have heard of, and, he's not cost nothing. But obviously that's got to have been... He's obviously showing he's got the ability, but I can only imagine, picking up on your point, that is the effort he's putting in training, it must be second to none. Which you can understand as a young player at Man United trying to break into that first team. Anyway, you can understand that point. It is refreshing to see that we've got a manager now who doesn't mind taking the risks, and then if any of the players, in for a better words, wanted to taking the piss on the football field on training and not putting it in and not looking like they want to give 100%, it's nice to see a manager will bomb them out and get a young lad in that will. I mean, I've called for that for years. And that's one good thing I've liked watching Ralph these last 10 games now he's been in charge.
Yeah,
it doesn't care about reputations, and I hope that that continues if he stays on till after the 6-month interim period, or hopefully we bring in a manager who'll continue that philosophy with it.
Yeah, which to be fairly for me, it should be like that, because as I've said, a couple of times now, reputations only last so long, and you can be a fantastic player, but as soon as you start, having a few bad performances, or your attitude changes, or you're not delivering the goods and you're not doing the basics, then fans are not stupid, and they won't stick with you if you're not working hard and you're not doing the basics. They can stick with you if you have a bad game, because we're not expecting someone to be 9, 10 out of 10 every single week. But if you're not working hard, and then you've got a young kid there who is going to put a shift in every single week, then for me, Ralph's doing exactly the right thing, because at the minute we can't afford to carry players, and we can't afford to have people in the team that's not going to put a shift in, because we're not good enough. We haven't got that level of ability. And
that was exactly what I was just going to say to you, Phil. And it's great that people are getting in on putting the effort in, which we've called for all season for there to be more effort. I think that the problem what we've got at United as a club now is the players, even the players who are putting in the effort, haven't been good enough when they have. I mean, I've championed Fred, as everybody well knows, all season. Scott McTominay, week in, week out, they're putting a shift in, and fair play to them to doing it. But this transfer window, I really do think we needed to sign a good defensive midfield player, which I'm sure every United fan wanted. I can only think the reason why we're not putting our hand in our pocket and doing it is rather because obviously Ralph's only committing to 6 months, and we're getting a new manager in. I mean, I think I listened to Paul Perkins' interview midweek, and he mentioned something about if you was a decent agent, not one of these who just want money or as much money as they can, you're not bothered where your client goes. If you was a decent agent, you like looking after your lads, do you want one of your lads going to a club what's only got a 6-month interim manager in, not knowing when that period's over, whether the new manager who comes in is going to like you as a footballer, is going to like you as a person? Is it, I can only see, if we are going in for players, this is the reason why they don't want to come, because after Ralph's finished, it's the uncertainty around it all, isn't it?
Yeah. That's it, because especially in football nowadays, if a manager doesn't like you or your face doesn't fit, then you could sign a big contract for 3, 4, 5 years, and then you're not going to be playing football. So
I mean, look at prime example, Donny Van De Beek, innit? He come with a reputation there. We all thought he was going to be a star man in midfield, and he's played about as much game time as me and you've played for the first team, mate. So it's what player is going to want to come with the uncertainty of who the manager is. That's the only thing I can think of, Paul. And I don't think we're going to get no one this window. I'd be very, very surprised. I've seen Neves' name chuck round today quite a few times. I mean, I'd take Neves at the club, but I also think if we do get Neves in summer, we'd need to sign, a Declan Rice to partner him to get us to where we need to be. That's my opinion on it.
Yeah, I kind of want to touch on the window, and thanks very much, guys, for keeping it going whilst I've been having all sorts of issues with StreamYard here. Just touching on the window, because obviously, look, it looks like we're not going to have any ins, not unless something substantial happens in the next coming days. But obviously, the defensive midfield player we all know is the holy grail for us at the moment. We're still waiting to get that player, because we need that midfield player to kind of for us to progress in Ralph Rangnick's system. But regardless of who it is coming in, or if it's Ralph, I think we all know the summer is probably going to be that prospective time when we get him. And I do agree with Lee in terms of Declan Rice. I think he would be someone who would be fantastic in the midfield. Like, he was brilliant at Old Trafford on Saturday. Like, if we can get him to be partner Neves in midfield with Bruno in front of him, then, like, look, there is a solid foundation in the midfield, you know. And like, just with regards to the transfer window as well, Wayne brings up a comment here. Wayne says, if I'm being cynical, I would think the Glazers sacked the manager because that was the cheaper option than buying 2 or 3 players we needed to challenge. So they've written off the season. Well, look, that's what they've effectively done. You know, I think really when you're hiring an interim manager, you are kind of writing off the season almost, because you're kind of saying, like, look, we're planning for next season already. Like, really, if a club has a contingency plan, like Chelsea with Tuchel last year, like, you know, they went out and got Tuchel, and, like, look, there you go. Here's the plan. You go out and do what you need to do. But United, again, like, because of who we have upstairs, sometimes they don't plan ahead. I don't know why, considering we're a £1 billion entity, like we're like a multi-billion pound entity, mind you. So not to have a plan there is quite disgraceful, to be honest. But, like, look, here we are. But guys, touching on the window, because obviously, like, look, there seems to be kind of a mass exodus seems to be happening in these last couple of days. A couple of players leaving, a couple of players trying to leave, but the club won't leave them. Firstly, get a touch on Donny Van De Beek, because a few minutes ago we talked about players working hard and training, and Anthony Langa obviously is a massive example of that. But a lot of kind of information coming out from the club today, well, not today, but in these kind of last coming weeks, is the club think he's not acclimatized to English football, and he doesn't suit English football, and it's a bit too physical for him. And looks like the club kind of are at a point that, you know, that he may see pastures new. Crystal Palace are obviously coming in for him now on a loan deal. When now Man United don't want an option to buy; they want a straight loan, and they want the team to kind of pay most of their wages. Obviously, there's teams like Valencia and stuff like that in for Van de Beek on loan at the moment. If Van de Beek is to go on loan, Phil, do we maybe experiment this Crystal Palace move and see if he's actually able to play?
I'll just crack on with that question. For me, if Van de Beek, I'm a bit. It's a weird one, this, because I think if we let Van de Beek go to Crystal Palace, and you'd see what he's like in the Premiership and stuff like that. But I feel as though, sorry, Crystal Palace. I was just saying, Keane, I think if he did go to Crystal Palace, I think there's obviously positives, but then I think there's also some negatives with that come with it as well. I think, you'd want him to go out and see what he was like in the Premier League, see whether he could hack it, get a run of games, obviously, and then you'd have a better idea of whether you think he could obviously come back into the Man United team. But the only problem I see with that is, with the way we've been playing, and obviously a lot of injuries and suspensions, we've not even given that opportunity to play in our team in the way we want to play. If he goes to Crystal Palace, it's a completely different formation. It's a completely different setup. And I just feel as though he'd be going there playing in a different sort of style and a different, maybe position as what we would have him. So then when he comes back again, then you're going to need time for him to adapt to our formation and how we want to play. And I just feel as though if we don't trust him and we feel as though he's not good enough to be in our team at the moment, when we're doing okay at the minute, but I think, overall we're still a million miles away from where we need to be, then really, is he going to ever be the player that we want him to be? So I can sort of see both sides of the coin, but if it was my opportunity and my sort of, if I was in Van de Beek's position, I think for me now, if I've not been playing and I've not been given that chance, and I've been at the club for, such a long time when they've not been doing well, I'd probably be wanting to just get out and play some football. So, yeah, if he goes to Palace, great, good for him. He can get some minutes, can hopefully produce and show the player that he is. Or if not, then again, is he going to go at the end of the season? Is there going to be other clubs coming in for him? Is the Premier League too physical for him? We don't really know because we've not seen enough of him. Is he not training well enough? I think that's a big one for me, because if you've come in from Ajax, you're obviously a world-class player. I've seen, highlights of him, and I wouldn't, claim to know him inside out, because I've not really seen enough of him to sort of judge him. But from what I have seen, he looks like he's a very gifted player, very technical, and can score goals. And if you're not, getting in that Man United team for whatever reason, there's obviously something going wrong, whether that's training or his attitude or whatever. But he doesn't come across as that kind of person. So it's a weird one. But I guess only time will tell. For me, I hope he goes out and gets some games, though. If I'm being honest, because I just feel for the lad, he obviously wants to play football and he's not been given that chance.
Yeah, look, for me, personally, I'd like to see him go Palace if he is going to get games, because I think Vieira's a good coach. Vieira's doing very well, and they have a decent midfield like Conor Gallagher and stuff like that in midfield, and Eze and players like that. I'd like to see him play with them players, because it's not like he'd be going to kind of Roy Hodgson's Crystal Palace where they're playing defensive football. Vieira's Palace don't do that, so it'd be great to see him if he can play well on that side. And then maybe look, if we get Ten Hag, Donny's staying, like 100%. That's where I'm kind of cynical when I look at United's management strategy. The fact that they're not willing to sell him, and they want him for the next manager, which tells me either A, it's Ten Hag, or B, it's someone who wants to keep him. If they have a plan, like that's if Man United have a plan, which we all well and know sometimes that isn't the case. But like if we do get Erik Ten Hag as our next manager, Donny Van De Beek's a starter for Man United. I've no doubt about that. Like because the way Erik Ten Hag plays, and obviously that Ajax connection is there. So 100%, I think. Look, he just needs to go for these next 5 months, get some game time, showcase why Man United bought you to prove that point, and then look, let's have a conversation in the summer, because look, there is a certain Frenchman who's out of contract in the summer. Looks like he's going. That gap needs to be filled. Donny could step into that role. I do believe he could under a new manager, but it's just one of these things where would he push himself that bit extra to get into the squad, get into the team?
Just on that, Keane, as well, do you think, though, because when I think about that as well, is when Jesse Lingard went on loan and he went to West Ham, he couldn't have done any more than what he did. And then he came back to United and he's not played any games at all. He's not really.
Yeah, but there's a couple of factors with Jesse. There's a couple of factors.
But I just feel as though if he's not being given a chance now, when the sort of team's been in turmoil for so long and we've had so many injuries and suspensions and all that kind of thing, what there must be, I can't put my finger on what it is that's not, happening for him, or why he's not been given a run of games or an opportunity. But it just, I think there must be something else to it, because he is a fantastic player. And
imagine on the other day on Saturday, and you bring Marsh on, who apparently said all these awful things, like he didn't want to be in the match day squad and he didn't want to be part of United anymore. And then there's an opportunity to bring a player on, and apparently, listening to all the headlines, he's been an exemplary player on and off the field. Apparently, this is the reports what's coming out, and the manager puts Marshall in front of you. Where's your head at as a player? Because I know mine would be out the club. If Marshall, if a player turned around and said, I don't want to be part of this club anymore, and I don't want in on this club, I want to go elsewhere, and you've not done nothing wrong and give 100%, and the manager puts that player on instead of you, my mind would be out of the door. I'd be like, this club does not value me one little bit. Why am I here? That's the way I'd be thinking about it.
Yeah, your head would be gone at that point. It really would. And I think, like, especially if you're Donny Van De Beek, if you're Jesse Lingard, right, look, Jesse's put up pictures on social media and West Ham top look. I think, look, that was disrespectful towards the club. Look, there's reasons why Man United shouldn't play him because of that issue, kind of flirting with another club. But in Donny's situation, I think, let's say he is given 100% in training. Let's say he is playing well in training, but he's not playing for whatever reason, and your head would be gone. But like with all the reports that are coming out of the football club at the moment, that they don't think he's able for the physicality, then look, maybe it's just the case, he's not just going to be a Man United player. But look, this is where I do believe if we are loaning them out, I'd like to see him loaned to a Premier League club and just to see if he can play Premier League football. And then we'll have our answer, really.
I think we just want to watch him play a run of games. We want a collective run of games where we can all actually have a proper opinion whether we all think he's a player or not a player. Because at the moment, none of us know. We don't know if he's a good player. We don't know if he's an average player. We don't know if he's a world-class player. We've not seen enough of him in the Premier League to place him where we think he should be. Hopefully he gets a run in at West Ham. Sorry, not West Ham, Crystal Palace or wherever he goes out on loan if he does. And we can form a proper opinion of him. Yeah,
that's the thing, 100%. I think that's where, I suppose the court of public opinion at the moment is 100% Donny Van De Beek should play. But Dave rightly mentioned 2 managers don't rate him at the moment. Like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer didn't play him. Like I thought for the life of me with Ralph Rangnick's system in terms of control, that's what he talks about, control. For the life of me, I thought Donny Van De Beek would be that player on paper when you talk about his philosophy. But Reese brings up a very good comment, and I think you're both at the club in this situation when this player came to the club with Keane and Scholes in midfield. Best midfield pair in the Premier League history, in my opinion. But is Donny Van De Beek the 2022 version of Juan Sebastian Veron? Quality elsewhere, but sadly won't caught the Manchester United. Phil, would you think this is maybe the case?
Well, it looks that way from obviously what we've seen so far, and I think that is quite a good comparison, because I remember obviously Veron, coming to the club with massive expectations, and obviously Argentinian international, a fantastic player, but just couldn't really get in the team for obvious reasons. I mean, Scholes and Keane, it's a different kettle of fish when we're comparing why Van De Beek can't get in the team. Obviously, Veron couldn't get in the team because the 2 players we're talking about are probably 2 of the best midfielders to ever play in the Premier League. But yeah, it is a similar situation, and I just feel as though, for one reason or another, Van De Beek, he just needs to either be given that chance to have a run of games so we can see what he's like, whether that's in United or on loan or wherever. And then you need to just make a decision on whether you give him a chance or whether you want to get rid of him. And I think that's fair to them, both teams. Obviously, him as a player, he wants to be playing, as most players do. And then for the club, obviously, you spent a lot of money on him. And if you're just going to be, leaving him on the bench and he's surplus to requirements, you'd get as much money as you can for him. And then, you try and bring somebody else in who's going to, have a better impact on the team. So that's where I sit with that at the moment. And I just feel as though it needs to be sort of done in this window. Because if we miss that opportunity now and we don't get him out on loan and we don't see, any game time from him from now to the end of the season, we come to the end of the season and then you're at a bit of a crossroads, really, and you don't really know where you're at with the player and what he's about, what he can do in the Premier League or, whatever. And you sort of none the wiser. So it's a big opportunity, I think, this window to get him out and, see what he can do.
Yeah, I think that's massively, massively important. And I think maybe, Donny Van De Beek himself, if I'm him right now, I'm pushing for a loan. Look, if he's been given the assurances that, look, the next manager is going to come in, is going to play him, because that's what seems to be leaked in the media at the moment. The club don't want him to go permanently because of wherever that new manager is. Then, look, I think Donny may be best off to go off on loan. Let's see what he's about in the Premier League or wherever it may be, and then we can see. Matt, who's an Everton fan, is us in the comments here, says, if Ronaldo didn't make his comeback to United, he may have seen more of Donny this season, as certain players' pathways and development have been blocked because of Ronaldo's return. I'll answer that myself, first of all, before I pose that to the lads. In terms of this, Ronaldo's return has nothing to do with Donny Van De Beek not playing at United. Donny Van De Beek is behind McTominay and Fred and Matic in the pecking order, in that position, in terms of either 6 or 8, and he's behind Bruno Fernandes as a number 10. Donny Van De Beek had this same issue last season when Ronaldo wasn't at the club. So I disagree with that, Matt. I wouldn't think Ronaldo's return to the football club would have a detrimental effect to Donny. Now, look, you're talking about strikers. I think, maybe Greenwood's development maybe hasn't sparked as much this season, maybe because of Ronaldo. I'd agree with that, maybe. obviously maybe Sancho probably hasn't been the main man because Ronaldo, everything's going through Ronaldo at the minute. But in terms of Donny Van De Beek, though, for me, no, I wouldn't say Ronaldo's return has hindered that because, look, we didn't have Ronaldo last season. And he didn't. He didn't play. And he had the same three midfielders in front of him, McTominay, Fred, and Matic. And that's not even to mention Paul Pogba when he came back from injury last season as well. He's playing behind Pogba. Like if you're looking at attacking midfield players, Donny's behind Bruno and Pogba at the minute, in the pecking order. So, with the way Bruno Fernandes has played in the United shirt, statistically, it's hard for Donny to get in behind him. Donny's also played as an 8, and when McTominay and Fred were both struggling, he couldn't get into the team. So I think there's more that meets the eye of this, but we're never going to know until eventually he leaves and then or goes on loan, and then we'll see what he's about in the Premier League. Wayne talking about Donny Van De Beek, he says he'd compare him more to Shinji Kagawa, and that is a fair comparison as well. He came from Dortmund with a fantastic reputation. But just before, obviously, I go on to the next topic in terms of our outgoings. What do you think in terms of Matt's comments, guys? Would you agree or disagree with that in terms of Donny Van De Beek's pathway being blocked because of Ronaldo?
No, I don't think Donny's has been it's struggled because of Ronaldo's comeback. I totally agree with what you said. More for me, Greenwood. Really, I thought that before Ronaldo come, he may give Greenwood a chance of being our main striker. It looks like he's playing wide this season. That could be a reason why Greenwood's not fulfilled his potential as much as we all would have liked. But no, I wouldn't say it's impacted Donny. I totally agree with what you just said. Then it's more to do with the players what are in front of him. But the hard part about digesting that is the players what are in front of him. We're saying that aren't good enough for United, So it's a bitter pill to swallow. I agree with the comparisons what the lads have made to Kagawa and Seba. I just think that Seba probably come with much more of a reputation than Donny did. We knew a lot more about Veron before he come to United. But I can see where the comparison stands, where it looks like he's got the ability and it looks like he's come from another club and just couldn't cut it for Man United in the Premier League, where that's where it's going to be nice to see him play in another team, hopefully, a lower league position team, giving some game time, let him get into the hustle and bustle of the Premier League and hopefully prove that he is strong enough, he is powerful enough and he's got the technical ability to belong in the Premier League.
Yeah, 100%. And it's going to come to Matt's comment there as well. Donny hasn't been given an opportunity. Can you not loan him to Everton because we are sweating for a creative there? Mate, you are struggling to stay up in the Premier League at the moment, pal. So look, if Donny is leaving on loan, we may try to help you out. But as you have a load of money and a new stadium coming, maybe Man United won't give you Donny Van De Beek because we're trying to fend off Newcastle and stuff like that. Other teams are trying to get up the pecking order. But yeah, look, we'll see. Maybe if Everton, maybe give us Calvert-Lewin, maybe you can take Van de Beek. We'll see. But one player obviously who's gone out on loan yesterday is Amad Diallo. Now, I touched on this yesterday. He's obviously after moving to Rangers on loan for the rest of the season. There's a lot of split opinion across the Manchester United fans, across social media, with regards to this move. Phil, obviously you being a young attacker, you've obviously been in a position to be a young player, going out on loan and experiencing those different setups outside of Manchester United. When you look at going to Rangers, obviously, my opinion on this yesterday on social media, I took a bit of background for it, was because for me, I'm thinking outside the old firm with Rangers, is there going to be much challenge in the Scottish Premier League, for Amad Diallo? Or do you think on the flip side, Phil, that he's going to a team that's probably going to win the league? He's going to be playing maybe 1 or 2 games in the Europa League for him. Do you maybe think this could be a good move, or do you think the competitive nature of the Scottish Premier League maybe mightn't be as hard as, let's say, maybe the Championship?
Yeah, I think it's I mean, you can look at that in sort of a couple of different ways, but for me, I think for a young player who's going to a massive club, Rangers is a massive club and obviously, you're not going to be playing against top level teams week in, week out. But for me as a young player, if you're going to a team that's, full of confidence and, you're going to win more games than not, you're going to be playing week in, week out, you should be, performing well against, the teams that they're playing against in a team full of, quality players for that sort of standard. Then for me, it's going to be a good confidence booster for him. And I think he needed that, as we've just been on about, a run of games, because as a young player, sometimes, you can train and you can, play the odd game here and there in the cups, and, you might play in the reserves and stuff, but you need to be playing proper competitive football now at the age he's at. And obviously he wants to be breaking into that first team like the likes of Alanga has. I think obviously he's a little bit further down the pecking order at this moment in time than obviously he was. And obviously we've got a lot of quality in the squad in them positions that he plays in, like obviously Sancho, Greenwood, Rashford. So for me, I think it's a good move for him. Obviously he's going to, be playing regular football, you'd hope. I mean, I don't think he'd be going if he wasn't been promised to, be playing regular football. And I just think he needs to go out there and just express himself and try and, enjoy his football, try and get a lot of assists and goals from now to the end of the season. You're going to be playing in a team that, should be winning more games than not. If you win a title, then, that's going to be, something that you can sort of maybe use to kickstart your career. He's only a young lad. If he goes and wins a league title with Rangers, that's something that you can, although it's probably them and Celtic most years that win it, it's something that you can use that as a sort of stepping stone then to kick on and hopefully come back to United full of confidence off the back of winning a couple of trophies and playing, 15, 20 games. And then he's got that experience of playing real men's football, and he's obviously a good player. He's come with a big reputation. We've signed him for a lot of money. But again, if he's not playing in the first team at Manchester United, his second best option is to be playing regular first team football elsewhere. And, Rangers get a great following. They're a good side. Obviously, you've mentioned there, they'll be playing in the Europa League as well, which is, great experience for a young player to be playing in that kind of competition. So, yeah, I think it is a good move overall. If you look at all aspects of, the move for him, I think it'll do him good, and he can come back to the club then with, a point to prove. And obviously he's got the experience then of playing at a decent level, and there's no excuses. He can come back and he knows what he's got to do and what's in front of him.
Yeah. I suppose you look at it from that point of view, yeah, you're probably right. Like, obviously Rangers are a big club. Obviously, like, look, the Old Firm derbies are going to be an experience and a half for him. Like, if he's going to Celtic Park, and that's going to be probably the most hostile atmosphere he's going to experience, not unless he goes and plays at Anfield for Man United. Well, for about 5 minutes of that game. But other than that, like, I had to get that dig in there somewhere. But other than that, like, it could be an invaluable experience. And obviously, Reece mentioned Giovanni Van Bronckhorst being the manager. I think that maybe could help him massively. He likes someone who likes technical players, and obviously Van Bronckhorst comes to that kind of Barcelona kind of background as well. And so look, maybe that's something that can help him. And yeah, before I go to Lee on the Amads situation, I'm just going to bring up Matt Smith's comment here now, because he's on about us looking for 15 million for Jesse Lingard. I'm going to get this up here now if I can. StreamYard cooperate. StreamYard starting to cooperate. Lovely. United wanted 15 million off Newcastle for a 5-month loan. It's a disgrace. I'm just going to give you 2 words. Matt, Sean Longstaff, 50 million. Well, 4 words. Sean Longstaff, 50 million. Yeah. That's all I'm going to say about that one. I think United had to get their back on Newcastle on that one. Like, come on. We know that they have a load of money, and to be fair, they tried to demand 50 million for Sean Longstaff, who, by all accounts, is not worth 50 million pounds. So, like, look, Man United were obviously getting Newcastle back in that one. But, like, Lee, Phil mentioned there with the Amad Diallo sign him here going to Rangers. It's going to be obviously a different kettle of fish from being the SPL, kind of playing with Rangers. Do you maybe think this is time now to maybe impress that new manager? You maybe get that big club experience. And one thing maybe from him, that one thing he lacked at Man United is the physical attributes. Do you maybe think going to a club like Rangers right now, it could actually help him in that respect.
As I was listening to you two having a conversation about them, the only thing that was going through my mind was he's going to go as a boy and hopefully return back as a man. That was the phrase going through my mind, because at the minute I seen Reese's comment about him looking very lightweight, which what I've seen of him, he's got a lot of technical ability. He's quick, he's pacey, he's tricky. It looks like, it could be a player for us in the future, but he needs to strengthen up. He needs to probably get down to the Scottish League and get kicked about a bit on one of them cold Scottish evenings or nights under the floodlights, you know what I mean? And what an opportunity it is, though, for him, like you say, to play in the Old Firm derby. It's a Rangers, although, like I say, the league is a bit hit and miss. Rangers and Celtic are two massive clubs with a massive following all around the world. I think it's a good club for him to be at with the manager they've got now. I just like I say, I just keep going back to that comment in my head where I think he'll leave us as a boy and he'll come back better for it and come back as a man and hopefully develop that physical side to him, which seems to be lacking at the minute. And I think if he can do that and get that experience, then who knows? We probably won't need to buy Sancho. Yeah,
it could be one of them things where we're after splashing out. Like if you actually think about it, you mentioned we bought Sancho. Like we paid 73 for Sancho, bought 39 for Amad, even though we only paid an initial fee before that. We're after buying Pelestri as well. Like we're after buying so many wingers. Like we're actually stacked in that position where I don't think this summer, like not unless the new manager comes in with a whole different philosophy and doesn't like any of the players, I don't think Man United will be going for a winger this summer.
No.
You have Pelestri, you have Diallo, Sancho, Greenwood, Rashford, Lingard, like then not to mention you Short Thierry and Hannibal, who are also on kind of the fringes of coming up through from the 23s. Like I don't think Man United will be going for a winger for not even just this year, for the next 2 or 3. To be quite honest,
I honestly do think I think we need a striker, mate. I really do think we need a striker. Cavani's going. Ronaldo's got a season bested in. For me, we've said it now for a few weeks, but I know we keep banging on about defensive midfield players, which we need. But for me, we need a world-class striker, mate, if we're going to progress. And there's not many of them about at the moment what's available. That's the problem. Ireland doesn't look like he's going to be persuaded to come now. So where do we go with that one?
Do you maybe think, I'll pose this back to you though, do you maybe think when Ronaldo leaves, Cavani leaves, that will Greenwood be ready?
I don't know, mate. I don't know. I like Greenwood, and I think he's got a lot of potential, but is he world class at the moment? For me, no, he's not world class at the moment. Whether he develops into a world class player is there to be seen. But for me, I would love to see a world class striker at United at this moment in time and build a team around him.
I'm going to come to Dave's comment with regards to a question for both of you regards to Jesse Lingard in a sec. But we mentioned strikers, not many available. Matt is after popping this up, Phil, and I want to get your opinion on this. Would Dominic Calvert-Lewin be an option?
Possibly. I mean, he is a good striker. Don't get me wrong. I think he's very good. He's got a lot of good attributes. But for me, I don't quite think
you want that next level. Do you want that next level?
I think when I think of a Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and I'm thinking of United wanting to get back to the very top.
You need a Mo Salah, someone like Mo Salah, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, no disrespect to Dominic Calvert-Lewin, he's a very good player, and I think he's only still quite young, and I do like the lad. I think he's got a lot of good attributes. As I say, he's good in the air, he's strong, he holds the ball up well, and he can obviously score goals. But I just feel as though if Man United want to take the next step and get back to competing for league titles and Champions Leagues and stuff like that, is Dominic Calvert-Lewin the answer? And I don't really think he's at that level where I'd be, convinced if he comes in, he's going to take us to, that next level. So, although he is a good player and I would like him at the club, I think he'd be a great, addition to the squad. I don't think he's the answer, and I don't, when we're looking at other players and strikers we've got at other clubs around world football who are the top side, you've got Lewandowski at Bayern, you've got Salah at Liverpool, you've got Haaland, you've got Mbappe. I wouldn't, necessarily class Dominic Calvert-Lewin anywhere near the level of them kind of strikers.
I kind of agree with Reese's comment there. If it meant Dominic Calvert-Lewin or Son, I'd take Son all day long over Calvert-Lewin. That's my personal opinion. I think Son's a great player. I think that he's the kind of striker we probably need at this moment in time.
Yes, he's very good there.
I don't think Dominic Calvert-Lewin's got enough sort of pace and sort of he's sort of one-dimensional for me. I think he can hold the ball up and he shoots sort of an Everton. Whereas for United, I want my strikers to be running in the channels and getting in behind and being quick and being able to beat a man and create something out of nothing. And I don't think he's quite that, player, and he needs service coming in from wide areas. And, he's a bit more of a hold-up. I think he'd be good with maybe somebody else. But
I was going to say, if he was looking at the front two, then...
I mean, if he was playing with somebody else, definitely. But...
Do you think maybe Calvert-Lewin is going to be Kane's replacement? I think that's where that's going to happen, where Kane leaves Spurs. Then maybe I think if Kane goes City, Calvert-Lewin goes Spurs. I think that's probably the next move, really.
So I was just thinking then, Calvert-Lewin, maybe if you put Greenwood forward with Calvert-Lewin and played off him, with the pace that Greenwood's got, and then that brings way for Sancho to come and show us what we bought him for. You know what I mean? That could be an option if we bought a player like that.
Yeah, 100%. Like I think that could maybe be an option. And look again, because we have so many forwards interchanging movements, under the right coach and the right philosophy, maybe he could come in and maybe make an impact.
The other thing, just before we move on to Dave's comment, which I keep trying to get into my head was, although we've got now 5 or 6 centre-backs, and apparently everybody's played well apart from the misfortunes of missing that penalty the other day, would you take the likes of Rudiger? I would still sign Rudiger all day long.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Like, Sean, I know you watch this podcast. My good friend Sean, he's a Chelsea fan. I'm just going to say it now because it's live on air and you can't stop me, Sean. Yeah, Antonio Rudiger, he's free in the summer. If United are looking for a centre-half, him beside Rafael Varane would be perfect.
That's what I keep thinking. I still think, like we said 3 or 4 times, world-class centre-back, world-class defensive midfield player, and world-class centre-forward is what United need. That's it. I know most teams need that to be successful, but I think that's where we're lacking all day in the middle. Definitely all day in the middle.
Yeah, 100%. I'm going to come to Dave's comment with this, and then we'll come back to a couple of comments here just with regards to it. But I'm going to come to you first on this, Phil. Dave says, what is the guy's opinion on Lingard feeling the club have let him down with pricing him out of a move to Newcastle, considering he posted pictures of himself in a West Ham shirt on 2 occasions this year? Phil, we obviously spoke about this a couple of weeks ago when Lingard did post that picture in the West Ham shirt on Instagram, and he came in for a lot of criticism of it. Now, United's reasoning for pricing him out, supposedly pricing him out of a move, is obviously, first of all, Newcastle could be a potential rival if they stay up. And also, obviously, we've had the Sean Longstaff situation with Newcastle. Do you think it's a bit far-fetched for Jesse to be saying that the club have left him down, considering we brought him through the academy, we've helped him through his development, and quite frankly, when he wasn't in the best of form, Ollie especially did give him his chances?
Yeah, I think, on that, he's not really helped himself either with some of the stuff that he's put on social media, and I think when he sort of probably looks at it from a Man United point of view and he's rational about it, I think he probably would understand the reasoning behind why the club are doing what they're doing. He's obviously thinking it from a selfish point of view. He wants to go and play games as most players would do. Obviously, Newcastle's going to be a big project that's going to be sort of, probably going to be taking a lot more shape next season if they stay up in terms of, the financial side of things and bringing a lot more quality to the club. He probably just wants to maybe go there now and maybe, try and impress and hope that he could, potentially get a permanent move there at the end of the season. But yeah, I think, with the way that things have played out with Jesse, obviously he went to West Ham, did really well. Maybe thought he was going to come back and play a little bit more game time for United. things have maybe gone a little bit sour between, him and the club in different ways that we've seen sort of things in the last couple of months and weeks. But yeah, I think, for me, for Lingard, I think he's just got to understand that the club, at the end of the day, it's a business as well, and they're going to do whatever's best for them. And if they think that, they can get as much money out of Newcastle for whatever reason, then that's the club's sort of prerogative, really, and he's just got to accept that. He's under contract with the club, and unless everything's agreed by all parties, things like that aren't going to happen. So yeah, we'll just have to see how obviously that plays out. But for me, I think he can't really hold any grudges against the club the way he's been treated from a young boy. The club's always done good to Jesse, and I think it'll work out one way or another, hopefully in the coming months.
Yeah, and I think he's a quality footballer. And for me, like, look, I've been a massive supporter of Jesse Lingard throughout his time at United, and even last year when he was with West Ham. But like, to see kind of him come out with things like that, I think for me it kind of sours our relationship with him a bit. And I think from the fans' point of view, like, we've seen the fans boo Anthony Martial last week. Now it's like, look, I'll be honest, it's not right to boo your own players. Now, when they're United shirt, when they're on the pitch for the 90 minutes, you support them. But I won't be shocked if he gets booed at Old Trafford, and I'm not condoning that. But like, you don't say things like that towards the football club who brought you up. Do you know what I mean? You've been here since day one, and kind of you don't do that. You really don't. But I'm going to come to leave this comment from Matt. He says, does Jesse really want Newcastle? Would it not be smart for him to sit on his contract this year and go wherever he wants in the summer, Newcastle for free in the summer? Like, on that, Lee, Jesse Lingard's in a position now where he can sit in his contract for 5 months, go to Newcastle, go to Everton, go wherever, and get a huge signing on fee and big contract and whatever. Would that be smart for him to do that? Or do you maybe think maybe in the Euros, maybe he's looking at the Euro side, he's looking at the World Cup in the winter, and he's thinking we need football, consistent football between now and December?
The whole situation, I don't like it, to be honest, Keane. It's been a lad who's grown up there as a kid. Is it 21 years now? Has been at the club. It's some time to be at a football club, and I agree with what you said about we've developed him as a player. We've given him a great career, but that works two ways too. You know what I mean? He's been loyal probably to Man United for 21 years. He's dedicated his life to Man United. So I can kind of look at it on a footballer's side too and think, I went on loan last year at West Ham, did really well. I've come back trying to get my place and I've not got it. If it wouldn't have been for him posting them stupid things he did on his Instagram and, getting involved with stuff outside of football, where what does my head in, which on this cast, where footballers nowadays don't just concentrate on the football. They've got their own brands and things like this. For me, it's a lot of crap. I think if he wanted to do them silly things, then I think United are known for looking after their own. They've always looked after their own. Just look at me and Phil. We went back to that dinner a couple of months ago, where I've had nothing to do with United for 13 years and still getting invited back to dinners. So we've always not been known as a club who look after our own, and I just feel like it's a sour situation. What shouldn't have happened, really, And where he goes now, I don't know. It's does he get the loan move to try and push for a place in the England squad, or does he think, well, you've got me out of this move where I could have gone to Newcastle now because you've outpriced me. I'll just do what I want to do at the end of the season, walk around and pick who I want to pick. I don't know what it does. I just don't like the situation. It's a sour blow for me, for a player who's been at Man United for 21 years, who, when he does leave, we should all be, thanking him for his service, and he's one of our own, and he'll always be one of our own. That doesn't look like it's going to go that way now, and for me, that's a crying shame, to be honest.
Yeah, especially if you look at players who've been at the club a long time and then they go to pastures new. Like I look at Butty, I look at Phil Neville, for example, too. Players, John O'Shea as well. Players like that who've been at the club a long time, gave a long service. Then when it was time for them to leave, when they weren't playing regularly, they moved on and respectfully.
Darren Fletcher, another one.
Darren Fletcher is another one as well. Yeah,
you know what I mean. Just looking at Neil Wood didn't make it at the first team, but he's the under 23s manager. We always look after our own. We always have done, and that's where I think it's just a crying shame for someone to be at a club for 21 years. I was there 11, and that felt like a lifetime. So it's more or less doubling my time when I was there. You know what I mean? So to give so much service, it's a shame that he's not going to go down as one of them players. You know, it's an awful thing to think of.
Yeah, but look, hopefully it ends in an amicable way. Like, hopefully they can sit down between now and the end of Monday and sort something out some way, somehow. But in terms of like current Man United related topics, that's more or less us wrapped up here for this evening. As Phil mentioned, when my Wi-Fi was literally all over the shop, he was going to do a bit of a Q&A. So I'm going to do a bit of a 5-10 minute Q&A with the guys here on the show. So guys, in the comments, if you do have any questions for lads about their own professional career in terms of their time at United and stuff like that, do throw that into the comments there, and the lads will happily answer the questions. But before I get the questions from the guys, I just want to get Reese's comment up here with regards to Talk the Devils. Reese said this has been a quality podcast. It's been great so far. Talk the Devils is an absolute elite channel. One of my favorites. Glad I got recommended to watch this channel. Absolutely. Look, Talk Devils. Want good, balanced Manchester United content. And from ex-players' perspective, this is the place to be. So do smash like in the video, guys. Hit that subscribe button. So we're on the road to 4K subscribers. So do help us reach that milestone. So I'm going to take Reese's first question there. I'm just going to give this to Lee first of all. So just with this, during your football career, what was the hardest moment in your life to deal with?
Getting released. Getting released, mate. Never ever forget it. Still as fresh in my memory now as it was from the day when I ended up in Sir Alex Ferguson's office. I knew it was coming, don't get me wrong. I knew I was getting released because I'd not played for a substantial amount of time because of an injury. And like I say, I should have probably got released the season before I did. And fair play to them, they kept me on, hoping, my 3-year pro contract run out. I thought I was getting released at 20. They gave me another contract till I was 21, another year with a nice signing on fee too, So to try and get me back to where I was, unfortunately, my knee had other ideas. But I always remember going into the office and Fergie saying to me, "Listen, it's not on your ability. You've never caused me no trouble in 11 years. You've always given it your all, but unfortunately, it's not going to work out." And you never forget coming out of that office and just thinking, I've grown up as Man United. You know what I mean? It's part of me. It's part of everything I know and everything I've done from being 9 years of age. And within a flick of a switch, it's gone. It's. I'm just glad nowadays that the kids get help with the anxiety and and that sort of thing, because that wasn't about when we was young lads. It was just thanks a lot, but we'll see you later kind of thing. And it's so easy to slip into anxiety and depression with it. So it's just a good thing now that the kids have got that help and it's been acknowledged.
Yeah, 100%. It's great to see that them services are there at the football clubs now, and I think obviously mental health is a massive thing. Obviously, it always has been massive, but it's great to see that it's being highlighted more in football. It's not just obviously from physical health is being prioritized, but also mental health as well, because it's massively important to your everyday life. And Phil, just obviously with the same question from Reese, what would be like in terms of your playing career at Manchester United? What would have been your hardest moment at the football club?
Probably, coming back from the crash. I mean, before that happened, I think I was playing probably some of the best football that I've played in my career. Obviously, I was only 17, but I'd actually, been captain of the youth team. I think I'd made a new reserve team debut. Obviously, I'd just signed a 3-year contract after leaving school. And was sort of on top of the world and felt as though, was sort of making massive progress. And then obviously that happened and, it was, lucky to sort of still be alive, never mind to ever play again. So obviously having a year out and not being able to play football and having all that sort of physio and rehab was probably the most difficult time at me sort of period at the club. So, that's something that I'm obviously gutted it happened, but obviously look back and really proud of how I dealt with that at such a young age. And then obviously came back to, still play and get my opportunity in the first team through all the hard work. So, yeah, that was probably my hardest moment. But, obviously turn it into a positive and use that as sort of motivation to still, keep believing in myself and eventually, get back to, the level that I was capable of.
100%. And then you made your debut then alongside our favourite man, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, to make your debut alongside him up front. I'd say that must have been surreal up front alongside him.
Yeah, I was amazing. Obviously, I still remember that day like it was yesterday. Playing up front with Alan Smith and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. What a moment for me as a young kid. Can't really ask for much more really, and something that I'll always treasure. That day, that sort of moment, walking out in front of a full house at Crewe and seeing all the United fans was amazing. Goosebumps just thinking about it.
Yeah, not like United's away support as well. United's away support's the best in the world. I don't care what anyone says. Sorry, Matt, I know you're an Everton fan, but United's away support is second to none. Lee, I'm going to come to this with Matt's question here. Who was your biggest influence while you're at Manchester United?
Or as in a coach, or as in anybody?
Anybody, yeah. Anybody. Player, coach, family, whoever it may be.
We've answered this question once, I think, and I cracked on a lot about the coaches, which was a massive influence, and there was three which stick into my head, which was there's two what me and Phil met up with recently. Tony Whelan, who's a phenomenal guy, and he's still an absolute phenomenal guy to this day. He took us under his wing at 9-year-old and guided us through a lot when we were younger. And then we got passed on to a guy called, there was Neil Bailey from Wigan. If you remember Neil Bailey, another guy who, I knew before I come to United. I know his family well still. And then the main influence really who had me from being a kid at 9 to all the way through really was Paul McGuinness. Again, I'm 37-year-old now. I finished playing football at 21. And, he still contacts me, still asks me how I'm going on, still asks me if he can help me out anyway with football. What a guy to still be in contact with over such a long period when I've been away from the club for so long. So you look at guys like that, and I'd say they're the guys what influenced me. Player-wise, I think the guys when I was there, what was the main influence on who I looked up to was Paul Scholes. I liked his attitude. I liked, obviously, the way he played was phenomenal. How he conducted himself on and off the pitch. It was a great player. But I also really enjoyed the stupid lads, i.e. your Quinton Fortune, your David Mays, your Ryan Giggses, the lads what took the piss a bit and, but weren't afraid to have a laugh. It was great. It was just a great time to be at United. It was a great squad, great management from top to bottom. It was just a great period to be involved with a club with.
Yeah, 100%. And that dressing room's had so many characters in it now, and it's paramount to what we have now and what we see now. But Phil, in terms of your biggest influence at the club, we've spoke about this before off camera, but who would have been your biggest influence on the club in terms of players or anyone like that?
Yeah, I mean, I can just echo what Lee said there. Obviously, Tony Whelan was a massive part when I first joined the club. He was probably one of my first main coaches. Paul McGuinness, again, through the academy was, amazing. A big one for me was Rennie Meulenstein. He sort of took over the reserves and sort of helped me a lot with, the transition from playing as a right back for a period of time when the team was struggling, and he put a lot of trust in me and gave me massive amount of confidence with my sort of all-round game, really, and just learning the game from a different position. And I still obviously speak to Rennie quite often. He's another person who, again, we say it a lot of times that, that United look after their own, but they also care about you as people as well. So just to obviously still have contact with the likes of, all these coaches, just how much that they obviously value you. In terms of players, for me, obviously, we've just spoke about Ollie. I think when I was at the club, obviously, Ollie, I had the the bad car crash incident and was out for a year. Ollie had his knee operation, and he was out for a large period of time at the same time when I was. So we got quite close on the sort of injury table and just chatting and doing a lot of rehab together. And obviously he was somebody who I used to, spend a lot of time with and just talk, about not just football, but everything in general. And I think he was somebody who helped me a lot with my game and just made me more mature as a person. So yeah, but I mean, I could go on all night really about players. I think all the players that were there at the time were, fantastic people, fantastic players, and great characters, all different in their own way. And used to sort of, help all the young lads, and they'd always have time for you if you ever wanted to ask them any questions, any advice. They'd take the mick out of you, and you could take the mick out of them, and there was never any sort of, bad blood or anything. So yeah, it was just a really special time to be at the club, and it was just full of like really, really good players, but really good people as well. So we was very lucky, to be involved and to be at the club for such a long time when obviously all them people were there.
And it's great to hear that like the club like look after their own after they finish at the football club. It's not just like thanks for your service and off you go. Like there is always kind of that relationship that's kept, and that's why Manchester United is the biggest club in the world and always will be. I was going to bring this question finally to Lee, and just before we wrap up, it says, do you think between your time at the club to now to when you go back, do you think there have been any significant culture changes? And do you think this could be a long-term problem or benefit?
That's a good question. Not quite sure to answer that question, really, to be honest with you. Culture changes. I think football in itself changed. The full philosophy of football at the moment from when I was there, when I was playing, changed. For me, we mentioned this a few weeks ago. For me now, football has lost its identity as a game. It's become more business minded now, on and off the field. There doesn't seem as much loyalty now with clubs than there used to be when I was there. When we went back to the club, it seems more corporate. It's what I don't like about the game, which I've never hid. For me, football's a game for kids like myself and Phil. Growing up on council estates with not much money, being able to go out and kick a ball around the field with your mates is all we had to do. And obviously, when I was at United, there was a hell of a lot of us what didn't grow up, with the most favourable of upbringings, but we all had one thing in common. We all love playing football, and it was a game. Nowadays, that culture's changed. It's all about money. It's all about where you can, get your own branding from, and this, that, and the other. And like I say, I don't think it's United. I think football's changed as a whole, and for me, it's changed for the worse. I think there's been too much money put into the game. And it's sadly knocked the idea of and the simplicity to what football was designed to do for me.
I think the football has changed in the last kind of 15 years. I think there's definitely a massive culture change. It's a lot more commercialized. I think the commitment isn't there. It's like, there's no more kind of, it's rare you see a one club man now. Everyone's kind of looking for that next kind of move. I think, I suppose loyalty's gone out of the game. I think we look at all the big broadcasters, I think the whole Super League thing kind of really showed where the football clubs kind of are in terms of where their mind's at in terms of the game. The broadcasters were massive hypocrites as well, I think, when the whole Super League situation was going on. They say football's for the fans. Look, being a match-going fan, I can wholeheartedly say football definitely isn't for the fans, because the scheduling times for games, people have to work, people have to do all that, and they make it very uneasy. Then you think about fans who are all around the world watch it on television. Sometimes they don't even make it available to watch. Like, fans have to illegally stream it now. I don't, but fans have to illegally stream it and do all these types of things. And when that Super League thing happened, they said football is for the fans. It was a crock of what, because these broadcasters didn't have the streaming rights for our prospective Super League.
How can they put so many Premier League games on at 3 p.m. and no one have the rights to watch them games unless you illegally stream it? That's with the amount of money what's in football. That for me is absolutely ridiculous. That 95% of fans cannot watch their team if they cannot get to the ground on telly, and they've got to do something where you've got an illegal box or whatever just to watch your team. That shows that football's not for the fans.
That's why I think someone like Amazon, are prospectively making a plan where if there's a subscription service now where you can watch everything, I think that would be better for fans, especially people who live overseas, that they can have a service like that where they pay, let's say, a tenner a month and all this, like they have all the games. Yeah. That would be for the fans, something like that. But again, it's just one of them things where look, money talks at the end of the day, and I think it's one of these things where it's a bit sour. It's a bit sour, to be honest. But on that note, guys, I'm going to wrap up tonight's show. Thanks very much to everyone for tuning in. And please don't forget, guys, do like and subscribe. As I said, look, we are on the road to 4K. We do have a lot of interesting content coming up, interviews, podcasts, all that type of stuff. And do check that out. We do have a new series coming up as well. And myself and Wayne have been in conversations in terms of more kind of podcasts we're going to produce for you guys. So look, do stay tuned to our YouTube channel. A lot of things coming up. And we do appreciate all your support, all your comments. And as always, guys, your comments tonight have been absolutely great. I've tried to get to as much of them as possible. Sometimes it's hard when we're all chatting away. Sometimes I might notice a comment or two come up. But look, don't worry. Look, we do notice all of them. We do appreciate your contribution. And look, we do appreciate you all tuning in every week. Because it makes us feel good about the stuff that we are producing and going forward. But guys, thanks very much to Lee. Thanks very much to Phil for both coming on this evening. Hope you all have a good weekend. Now, usually I always wrap up the podcast with a score prediction or who's going to win. But I hope you all have a good weekend. Man United can't ruin your weekend this weekend. And I just want to throw it in there. I got the score prediction right last week. Phil didn't. But on that note, guys, thanks very much, everyone, for watching. Do like and subscribe. Until next time, we'll see you later.